Students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In today's video, we are going to discuss about a recent judgment that has been passed by the Allahabad High Court, and where it has allowed to carry out scientific assessment of Gyanvapi Mosque site, and here carbon dating is also will be used in the future. So let us try to understand that what is the decision of High Court all about, and what is the carbon dating that has made up the headlines in this particular context. So first, to give you the background of this particular topic, the Allahabad High Court has ordered a scientific survey including carbon dating of a shivling that was supposedly found few months back in the Gyanvapi Mosque. So basically, it is believed that this shivling has been found at the Gyanvapi Mosque complex in Varanasi, and on the 16th May of last year, the court has ordered a videographic survey of the Kasi Vishwanath Temple Gyanvapi Mosque complex. Both these complexes, religious complexes, are basically joined with each other, and this survey was at last completed by the commission which was appointed by the local court. Now, during the survey proceeding, the structure is that has been recovered is basically claimed to be a shivling by the Hindu side, and the Muslim side, on the other hand, claims that this structure is not a shivling, rather than it is a fountain. So basically, what this structure is all about, when this structure was what is the age of this structure, and to understand this, all the scientific assessment, including carbon dating, will be done possibly in the coming time. So let us first try to understand the concept of carbon dating. Now, carbon dating is a very widely used method that is mainly used to establish the age of the materials. Mainly, it is used to establish the age of organic material. That means the thing that once were living, including plants as well as animals. The reason behind this is very simple, because all the living forms have carbon in the various forms. The various form, by various form, what we mean that in the atmosphere, in our environment, carbon is found in three isotopes: carbon 12, carbon 13, and carbon 14. Carbon 12 is found in highest concentration. Carbon 13 and carbon 14, on the other hand, is found in the smallest concentration. So the dating method is based on the simple principle that carbon 14, which is an isotope of carbon with atomic mass of 14, is radioactive in nature. And since it is a radioactive material, it will decay, and this decay at a well-known rate. And the decay, since this decay happens at a well-known rate, to how much extent the carbon 14 molecule has decayed in a particular sample, on that basis we can estimate the age of that particular sample. For example, if we try to understand in more detail how this dating method works, so as we have discussed, the most abundant isotope of carbon is C12, and a small amount of C14 is also present in the environment. Now, the ratio of C12 to C14 in our atmosphere is almost static, it does not change, and is also known to us. Now, if we talk about the plants and animals, plants get their carbon through photosynthesis. On the other hand, since animals depend on plant product, they get their carbon mainly through food. And since plants and animals get their carbon from the atmosphere, and in atmosphere we have both isotope of carbon, that is carbon 12 and carbon 14, so both plants and animals are acquiring C12 and C14 in roughly the same proportion as is available in the atmosphere. So for example, if we try to understand this, suppose we are trying to estimate the age of the skeleton of this leopard, for example, which we have found. So what we can do, we can try to analyze and measure the amount of carbon 14 that is present in this leopard, and we will try to measure this with the ratio of carbon 12 that is present here. And since we know that the actual ratio, initial ratio of C12 C14 is known to us, currently we know the ratio of C12, and then by understanding that how far this decay has happened, how far the carbon 14 value has reduced, we can understand that how long this leopard has been dead for example, we know currently that it takes about 5700 years for carbon 14 sample to decay by 50% of its weight. So this is the method that used for carbon dating. Now, if you talk about carbon dating, since we have discussed that carbon 12 and 14 is found in both animals as well as plant life. But what about the non-living objects? No, now obviously, if we talk about non-living object, it is extremely effective. Carbon dating is extremely effective for living object, but it cannot be applied in all the circumstances. For example, it cannot be used to determine the age of non-living objects such as rocks or any kind of rock sample. The age of things that are more than 40,000, 50,000 years old also cannot be arrived through carbon dating, because obviously we know that carbon 14, its half-life is about 5,700 years. So after 8 to 10 cycle of its half-life, which will be achieved in 4,000 to 50,000 years, the amount of carbon-14 that will left in the sample will be very, very small and will become almost undetectable in nature. So these are some of the limitations of the carbon dating method. So as we discussed, it cannot be used to measure the age of very old objects. It cannot be used to measure the age of the non-living objects. So what is the alternative with us? So as far as the alternative of measuring the age of inanimate objects are concerned, the one of the most common method is what we call as uranium slash lead dating. Now we know that uranium is a material that is found in our in around us in the rocks especially, and over a time what happens as the time passes, uranium start to decay, and gradually uranium decay into what we call as the stable isotope of the lead. This basically is a multi-step decay series, but as far as the time is concerned, the uranium 238 has by far the longest half-life of 4.5 billion years. That means even if you want to estimate the age of object that is 1 million, 2 million, 3 million years old, we can easily do this because the concentration of uranium-238 and lead therefore will be sufficiently high enough because it has a half-life of 4.5 billion. Now if you compare that with the half-life of carbon, which is only 5,700 years, so obviously uranium-lead dating has an edge over the carbon dating. The decay series ends with lead 206, which is stable as we discussed. The higher the concentration of lead in the sample, the older the rock. That is generally we can understand the principle underlying it will. The second method that is also used is something that we call as potassium argon dating. Now, potassium argon dating is based on the principle of the potassium, which is again a reductive element. It gradually decays into the argon, which is a more stable form. So example, again, if you want to determine the age of the rock, so 40K decays into 40R, that is 40 potassium decays into 40 argon, and it escapes. For example, if you try to understand from volcanic eruption, some lava has came out, some magma has come out in the past in the earth, and now this magma has solidified to form the earth, form the rock. And we want to understand that when this magma must have come through this volcanic eruption, we'll try to measure the ratio of potassium and we'll try to measure the ratio of argon. So basically, this ratio will help us understand that the argon which is now trapped and is accumulating at constant rate will help us understand that what is the age of this particular rock. The same principle can be applied to determine the age of any rock. On the other hand, you talk about other method that is more precise method which is used mainly to determine how long an object has remained exposed to sunlight. This is something that is determined by a method that is in short called as CRN method, which stands for cosmogenic nuclide dating method. Now, cosmogenic nuclide dating method is a type of technique which is based on the radioactive days again, and are particularly interesting and useful when studying the buried objects or the changes in their topology. However, there is one other method that is used for the determining the age of the rock sample, that is called as indirect carbon dating. Now, indirect carbon dating method is used many times to study the age of the ice cores in the glaciers, in the polar areas, especially talk about the Antarctic mission that many countries have launched. They have stations there, including India as well. So they study the ice core, and study of ice core is done by studying the amount of carbon dioxide molecules that is trapped within the large ice sheets, large ice glaciers. The trapped molecules, since they are trapped in this ice core, for example, for a very, very long period of time, they have no interaction with the outside environment. And since they have no interaction with the outside atmosphere, they are found basically in the same state as when they were trapped. So determining their age gives a rough estimate of time when the ice sheet must have formed. And this is the same method that is used for estimating the age of the Antarctic ice sheets as well. Similarly, if we try to understand and determine the age of the rock, there is one other method, indirect carbon dating method, that we can use, because we have discussed in the beginning of video that carbon dating is very suitable to estimate the age of a organic material. So for example, if you want to determine the age of the rocks, what you can do, if suppose in this rock you have the samples of the dead plants or animals, for example, if it is a fossil remains you are able to find in this rock, then measuring carbon in these dead plants or insects that is trapped beneath this rock also can give you indirectly an indication of the time of formation of this particular rock, or when that particular rock has reached that particular area where the samples have been found, where the organic samples have been found. So how this all comes together in the Gyanvapi Mosque case? So we have discussed that in the Gyanvapi Mosque case, the Hindu petitioner, if you look at this particular sample that has been found here, claimed that this Gyanvapi Mosque was built on an ancient Hindu temple. And the rationale And the proof they give in about this particular statement is that the discovery of this particular rock that is believed to be Sivling. Now, the purported Sivling is being cited by Hindu side as evidence of the existence of the temple far of, we can say, far ahead before the development or construction of the mosque at the given site. So in this case, the petitioner purpose would likely be served if it is established conclusively that the sibling existed at that particular place before the mosque came in 1669. So that is why first what the government want to do, or what the High Court basically want to establish, is that whether the age of the sibling is more than 400 500 years old. Because if the sibling is itself, suppose we try to determine the age of sibling, and now it come to our understanding that the sibling has this particular rock has been basically formed somewhere in the 18th century. That means this sibling could not have been there before the we can say construction of the mosque. Or if the sibling is found to be much more older than this particular time period, that means there will be one proof that will be given in the support of the Hindu petitioners that there might have been temple before the mosque was constructed. However, in this entire case, there is certain limitations which the High Court has put into the process, is that the structure cannot be uprooted or disrupted as per orders of the Supreme Court. So methods like looking for trapped organic material beneath it might not be feasible. For example, I just told you that one other indirect carbon dating method is you break the rocks, you try to find some organic molecules, some organic sample, and determine the age of the organic sample. That will give you an indirect age idea about the age of this rock. But since Supreme Court has said that this structure cannot be disrupted, uprooted, or broken, the indirect carbon dating also seems not feasible in this particular case. So that is all about this particular issue. I hope you understood about the concept of the Gyanvapi Mosque case. What is the issue? What is the issue behind this? What is the controversy all about? And what is the recent order regarding carbon dating and other scientific assessment? That is all for this particular video. If you like the video, please hit the like button, share it with your fellow aspirants, as well as subscribe to our channel for more such content. Thank you very much.